For today's video, I want to remind you all that you can now support the channel on Patreon. I'll talk to you about that after the review is over, so stay tuned for that. Also, at the end of the review, the first character for top tier supporter shoutouts for next month will also be revealed at the end of the review, so trust me, you don't want to miss out on that. Let's not wait any longer, enjoy the review. Thank you. Hello internet viewers, I'm the Fairly OddGamer, and welcome to the finale of my two-part Battle for Bikini Bottom review. As you may recall in the last review in part 1, I talked about the original Battle for Bikini Bottom. But today in part 2, we're going to talk about the game's remake, Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. But before I start, I want to remind you all to watch part 1 of the review, just to get an idea of what the game is like in general. So with that out of the way, let's get on with the review. I was surprised when I first heard that Battle for Bikini Bottom was getting an HD remake when it was announced last year. But seeing that both Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon made successful HD remastered versions, I can see why this game would get remade. It's one of the most successful SpongeBob games of all time. Initially I thought Rehydrated was more or not the same game but with a graphic update. But when I played this version, I was really surprised by what I saw because it was much more than I thought it was going to be. And because of this review will more than likely be a comparison video. So was it just the original version but with a graphic update, or is there something there that I am missing? Once again, let's dive right in and find out. The game was published by THQ Nordic, best known for Destroy All Humans and the Blob series, and was published by Purple Lamp Studios, famously known for games such as The Guild 3 and Misfits, neither of which I'm familiar with. It was released on June 23rd of this year for the Xbox One, PS4, Switch, and the PC via Steam. And yes, I know it shares the same birthday with a certain blue hedgehog almost turning 30. Now for those who don't know, the original PC version of Battle for Bikini Bottom was a point-and-click game that almost felt similar to Operation Krabby Patty. The PC version for Rehydrated, on the other hand, is pretty much the same as the console version. However, for this review, I'll be looking at the Xbox One version. First off, I'm glad to hear the official theme song from the show, unlike in the original where I presume Joe White sang the theme song, but I could be wrong. Anyway, it follows the same plot of the original game. The only difference is that the cuts are replaced by black fades. Not to mention the music and voice acting are kept the same, so for those who really wanted Clancy Brown as Mr. Krabs and another voice actor from Mermaid Man, then get ready to be disappointed. But yeah, for the most part, none of the main elements have changed, like the plot, characters, levels, movesets, the whole shebang. The game looks better and even feels better than the original in my opinion. The animation quality is much smoother than the original in both cutscenes and in-game. Speaking of which, I never talked about the idle animations in the original because they're not worth talking about. But here, it features some well-known idle animations like SpongeBob's shock face from his first movie, and even the mocking SpongeBob meme for what I think is probably the worst SpongeBob episode of all time. Want to see more memes? How about that random fish with the headphones on? He actually dabs while you wait long enough. Memes galore! Even the levels got graphic updates, though sometimes it could be a bit oversaturated. I think it's because they wanted to go for a toon-like feel to it, but even then it still looks well made. However, there are times where the graphics would pop in and out, which I honestly didn't mind about. It's just something minor that can get patched later on. Also, I noticed that the grass in the original was used as a texture for the ground, which I like for a GameCube game. Here, I think most of the time was spent on fully modeling and animating the grass. But then again, that's just me. The gameplay went through some major changes from the original for better or worse. SpongeBob controls about the same as the original, but there are some problems about it which we'll get to later. That also applies with Patrick and Sandy's gameplay. Patrick can still throw stuff, and Sandy can still glide with her lasso. But Patrick can also ground pound with his butt, and Sandy can perform her lasso attack while in midair. That's awesome! Warping to missions via the pause menu has also changed from a simple menu to a map of Bikini Bottom, but still acts the same as the original, so not much to say there. Now for each level, I'll briefly talk about how the remake is different from the original, if any. Jellyfish Fields looks about the same besides the graphic update, but there's one thing that I surprisingly had the most trouble with. I'm talking about the seesaw at the end of Jellyfish Fields. You can't even imagine how many times I failed at this. I never had that issue in the original, so why must I have it here? Also, even if I quickly tap the jump button, it acts as if I jumped once every time. Other than that, it's about the same as it was in the original. I don't have much to say about Downtown Bikini Bottom or Goo Lagoon, so let's just move on to the Poseidon. Whenever Robot Sandy does the butt bounce, Both SpongeBob and Patrick get launched into the air and can immediately use their ground pound attacks to finish her off. The Bubble Ball power-up is about the same as it was in the original, but I feel that you have to be more precise with your shot at times. The Brawling Ball mission in the Mermal Lair wasn't as difficult as it was in the original version, but that's probably because I knew what was coming. Also, I love what the remake did with the museum from Rock Bottom. In the original it showed images from the show, but this version not only shows in-game models, but also actual artwork. Remember in my previous review when I talked about Lights Camera Pants? There are also galleries that featured artwork and or action figures that you can unlock during gameplay. I was intrigued to see some of the artwork that I saw when playing that game, such as The Birth of SpongeBob, Sunday in Jellyfish Fields, Vitruvian SpongeBob, and SpongeBrand, among others. Hey look, it's old Bold and Brass!
More like belongs in the trash!
Sand Mountain has drawback distance, which at points can be a bit annoying. Even though I can make my way through them very easily, it's just too bright for my liking.
And what's it like, you may ask? Well, in the words of Anakin Skywalker,
it's coarse and rough and irritating.
And it gets everywhere. How come I never used that in the original review?
I also want to point out that projectile shooting enemies have red danger zone markers to avoid that is only present in the remake, which makes boss fights like Robo Patrick very easy when avoiding his attacks. I also think in my opinion the small quip from SpongeBob is more hilarious in this version.
I think I have fudge in my pants.
The controls for the Cruiser Bubble have changed from inverse controls in the original to regular controls here. As someone who has just played the original version, it takes time getting used to these controls, but once you get the hang of it, it gets easier from here. Anyway, SpongeBob's Dream looks a little better than the original, but there are some differences that are, well, not as good as the original. Sandy's Dream is still okay, and it's about the same as it was in the original, so not much to add. Squidward's Dream managed to update his photos such as Handsome Squidward and Unsure Squidward from just one bite. Also, some of the music platforms weren't precise at times. At least you still have infinite lives like in the original, but who would manage to make it all the way to Squidward's nose without dying? Mr. Krabs' Dream is about as bad as it was in the original, but I actually think this version is worse than the original. Why is that? Because you can't cheese this mission like in the original. The Duplicator-trons have these bubble shields, which leaves you pretty much no choice but to destroy the robots and beat the mission legitimately. Plus, the remake still has knockback issues from the original. Another thing I like to point out is that every time a character dies or falls off a ledge, the game loads every time, which never happens in the original. Patrick's Dream is about the same as the original, so pretty much nothing. Oh boy, let's talk about Kelp Forest. In the original, it was so dark that I couldn't even progress through the level. But here, it looks much better in comparison. I can see where I'm going and it makes things a whole lot easier for me. I still don't like the crystal mission where you have to change characters every time. Again, it's a boring mission. But sometimes, even the most difficult parts in the original were actually made easier in the remake. One example is the vine sliding mission. I remember not liking it in the original because of how long it was, but it actually felt much shorter in here. In fact, I even managed to beat Mermaid Man's time in this version. The Flying Dutchman's Graveyard was another level that wasn't changed for the most part, except for the wall jump mechanic that I mostly managed to breeze through. That pretty much leaves the final boss against SpongeBob SquarePants. I mean, that's what it says according to the achievement. I actually find it much easier than the original, mainly because of how forgiving Roboplankton is, particularly in the second half of the boss battle. Every time you knock him off, he never comes back, and therefore gives you more opportunities to aim at the fuses in case you missed them for the first time. Other than that, it's pretty much it.
But there's one major thing that the remake has that the original doesn't have, and that is a 2-player multiplayer mode.
Hey dude, did you say multiplayer?
Why yes, Hux. Yes, I did.
Can I join?
Sure, why not?
Awesome, dude!
In multiplayer, you and a buddy fight against Robo Squidward, which was actually a scrap boss battle from the original game. In fact, a majority of the multiplayer features scrap ideas from the original game, such as an unused boss battle against Robo SpongeBob with his anchor arms, as well as an ice cream level, which is supposed to be Patrick's Dream. You can play as Gary, Squidward, Mr. Krabs, and Roboplankton in addition to the main trio. Throughout multiplayer, you have to defeat
A whole pack of robots!
and move on to the next island while blowing up one of Robo Squidward's tentacles each time. It's 3 waves per island and 26 islands total. That means a grand total of 78 waves of robots to beat up.
Also, if you both die, then you have to start that wave again. After every tentacle you blow up, you're given a small results screen. At first, I thought my connection was off because the continue button didn't work. However, it turns out that you have to hold the button to make the results screen disappear. Anyway, after defeating the last wave of robots, both players stand on a button as Robo-Squidward elongates his neck and sinks to the bottom of the goo. The downside is that you never actually fight the boss at all in this mode.
Oh man, I really wanted to beat that boss with you.
Yeah, it would have been nice, but who knows? Maybe for a patch update?
Dude, that'd be radical to have. Anyway, thanks for letting me help out.
No problem, Hux.
Cool, later dude.
So after playing both versions, how does the remake fare to the original? I think it's okay.
Both versions do an incredible job of taking a 2D cartoon into a fully developed 3D game as if I was playing a longer SpongeBob episode. I like the look of the original Battle for Bikini Bottom, and those who grew up with the original will still have a soft spot for it. However, the Rehydrated version looks better in my opinion. As a remastered version, it looks amazing to a point where it felt like I was playing a different game at times. I love the updated visual humor with the artwork as well as the new idle animations. And once again, Forest looks much better in here than the original. But sometimes the saturation boost can be hindering at times, primarily the drawback distance in Sand Mountain. When it comes to gameplay, I still think the remake handled its gameplay better. I initially had trouble with the cruiser bubble, but I managed to get the hang of it once I got used to the controls. Plus the SpongeBob mechanic is used much better in this version. I also like how the remake took some of the most difficult missions in the original and made them easier in here. I mainly refer to the Vine Slide in Kelp Forest as well as the final boss. However, the remake has some issues as well. I don't like how Mr. Krabs' dream is handled in both versions, but the remake barely made it worse because of the bubble shield protecting the Duplicatortrons. But honestly, I don't find it an issue at all because I was able to get it done in about half the time it took me in the original. I also thought the multiplayer was a bit bland in my opinion. It's nice to see scrapped ideas showcased in here, but the way it's presented doesn't please me very much. It would have been better to actually fight Robo-Squidward head on. Plus, having an hour-long nuke battle can get boring at times. But other than that, I find it pretty okay. Overall, Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated is a great remake, and I think SpongeBob fans can enjoy this game as much as the original.
And with that said, my two-part review of Battle for Bikini Bottom has come to an end. Which game will I review next? You'll just have to wait and see. I'm the Fairly Odd Gamer, and I wish you all good luck for the rest of your day or night, wherever you are. Take care, everyone. Hey guys, once again, you can now support the channel on Patreon, where you'll be granted access to the Discord server, have your name featured in the credits, bonus content, a sneak peek, and or an early showing of upcoming reviews, and now the moment you've been waiting for, the first character to be revealed for top tier supporter shoutouts. I mentioned in my Facebook and or social media that this character is from the most popular review as of today. You probably know what that is, and you've been asking for him to be in more videos. Well, guess what? Now is your chance, because next month, top tier supporters will be given a shout out from none other than Barney the Dinosaur. That's right, Barney will be here next month for top tier supporter shoutouts, which means for next month, if you want a shout out from Barney, if you guys support the channel on Patreon, click on the top tier. You'll be granted access to the server, sneak peeks, bonus content, everything, and name featured in the credits. And trust me, you will receive a shout out from Barney next month. So yeah, you don't want to miss out on that. Also, it's a good thing because starting next month, I'm only going to open the server to Patreon supporters as well as people who have helped out on the channel. So that means if you're on the Discord server right now, but not a Patreon supporter, now's your chance. Okay? Alright, so now's your last chance to be a Patreon supporter and still stay in the server. It's at least $1 a month. You can get any reward you like, but it's at least $1 a month to stay in the server. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's it. Only at least $1 a month, and you can stay in the server for as long as you'd like to. Alright, so that's probably about it for me, so I will see you all next month in the upcoming review. I will not tell you what that is unless you're a Patreon supporter. So, with that said, thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon.